Chosen one, there is a version of your story that you have been telling yourself for years, and it has been wrong. In your version, you failed more than you succeeded. In your version, the hard seasons were proof that something was broken inside you. In your version, God watched you stumble and turned away. But God has a different version. In his version, the nights you cried alone were catalogued as endurance. The relationships that shattered you were filed under refinement. The dreams that collapsed were reclassified as divine redirection. The years no one noticed you were recorded as formation. You have spent your entire life judging yourself by a standard God never used. And while you were busy condemning yourself in a courtroom you built inside your own mind, God was sitting in that same courtroom with a verdict you never expected. He was not disappointed. He was not waiting for you to do better. He was proud, shockingly, immovably, fiercely proud of the person standing in front of him right now. You were not led to this message by accident. A force beyond what you can see brought you here, because there is something God wants you to know about every step you have ever taken. And it will dismantle every lie shame has ever told you about who you are. Stay with me until the very end of this message, because by the time we are finished, 3 things will have happened. You will understand why every hard season you walked through was observed by God, not overlooked. You will receive a specific practice to release the shame record you have been carrying inside your chest for years. And you will hear God's actual verdict on who you have become, spoken directly over your life in a way you have never received before. I need you to hear all 3. Because one without the others will not do what this message was sent to do. Now, let me take you somewhere. It is late. The house is quiet. You are sitting alone, maybe on the edge of your bed, maybe on the couch with a blanket pulled around your shoulders, scrolling through your phone with the blue light washing over your face. The world outside is asleep, but your mind is wide awake, replaying conversations from years ago, searching for the exact moment things went wrong, the exact turn where you lost the path you were supposed to be on. You look at your phone and realize there is no one you can call right now who would truly understand the depth of what you are carrying. Not because people do not care, but because you do not have the words to explain a weight that has no name. And in that silence, in that ache, you whisper something under your breath, maybe not even a full sentence. Maybe just a feeling pushed through your lips. Something like, God, do you even see me anymore? I need you to know something about that moment. You were not alone in that room, not for 1 second. There was a presence with you that you could not see, could not hear, could not touch, but it was closer to you than the air in your lungs. And it has been there every single night you thought you were invisible. There have been signs. You may not have recognized them for what they were, but they have been appearing in your life with a consistency that is not coincidental. That strange exhaustion that sleep does not fix. You go to bed early, you rest your body, and still you wake up feeling heavy, as if your bones are processing something your mind cannot name. That is not illness. That is not burnout the way the world defines it. That is spiritual recalibration. Your internal system is being rewired for a frequency it has never carried before, and the fatigue you feel is the cost of that upgrade happening beneath the surface of your awareness, those waves of emotion that crash over you without warning. One moment you are fine, standing in the kitchen making coffee, and the next, tears are falling, and you have no idea why. Not sadness exactly, not joy either. Something older than both, something that rises from a place so deep inside you that it does not have language yet. As if an old version of you is dissolving, and the version God always intended is trying to break through the surface. That is not weakness. That is transformation happening in real time. and it will not stop until it is finished. The way shallow conversations have started to drain you. People you used to enjoy suddenly feel exhausting. Topics you used to engage with now feel hollow and thin, like eating air. You find yourself pulling away from circles that once felt like home, and you feel guilty about it, as though something is wrong with you. But nothing is wrong. That is elevation. Your spirit is outgrowing environments that can no longer contain what God is building inside you. And the discomfort you feel is the friction between who you were and who you are becoming, and that tightness in your chest when you think about the future. That tension that sits right behind your ribs and makes your breath shorter than it should be. You assumed it was anxiety. You told yourself it was fear, but it is neither. That is anticipation. Your body already knows that something massive is approaching, even though your mind has not caught up yet. Your spirit has already stepped into the next season, and it is pulling the rest of you forward. If you are experiencing even one of those, hear me clearly. These are not random symptoms. These are markers. They are fingerprints of God on your life, evidence that He is actively moving in your circumstances right now, whether you feel His presence or not. He was there when you cried in the car, so no one at home would see the cracks. He was there when you stayed up past midnight, staring at the ceiling, wondering if tomorrow would be any different from today. He was there when you held your tongue instead of defending yourself, absorbing the blow in silence because you knew the battle was not worth the cost. He was there when you chose to keep praying, even though every prayer felt like it was bouncing off a concrete sky. He was there when you made the hardest decision of your life and had no one to talk to about it, no one who would understand why you had to do what you did, every single moment. Witnessed. Notice how your shoulders carry a weight right now that no one has ever asked you to explain. Notice how your mind has been louder than usual lately, running old tapes, searching for evidence that you are not enough. Notice how your spirit has felt restless, even when your body is completely still, as if something inside you is pacing back and forth behind a door it cannot open. That restlessness is not disorder. That is God stirring what He planted. If you are still here, if you have not scrolled away or let your attention drift to something easier, it is because something in you recognized what I just described. And that recognition is not random. It is confirmation that this message was calibrated for your exact season. If you felt something shift inside you, if something in your chest moved when you heard those words, type "He sees me" in the comments right now. Seal that truth before we go deeper. Let me tell you about a young man who understood this better than most. His name was Joseph. He received a dream at 17 years old, a dream so vivid and so massive that it burned in his chest like holy fire. He saw himself elevated, positioned, used for something far greater than his small world could contain. But what followed that dream was not a fast track to destiny. It was a pit. His own brothers, the people who shared his blood, threw him into a hole in the ground and then sold him like livestock. He ended up as a slave in a foreign land, then falsely accused by someone he served faithfully, then locked in a prison he did not deserve. Years passed. The dream faded into something that felt more like a cruel joke than a divine promise. And the silence from heaven during those years was deafening. But here is what I need you to understand. During every single one of those seasons, the pit, the slavery, the accusation, the cell, the forgotten years when no one came and no one called, God was watching, not from a distance, not passively. He was there, inside the pit, inside the prison, inside the silence. He saw every step Joseph took, and he did not intervene, not because he was punishing Joseph, but because he was forming him. Every step was preparation, every season was architecture. And the man who eventually stood before Pharaoh and saved an entire nation from starvation was not the same 17-year-old boy who received the dream. He was deeper, steadier, wiser. He had been built by the very suffering he once cursed, and God was proud of every inch of that construction. That is exactly what has been happening to you. God has been watching your pit. He has been present in your prison, and what he has seen did not disappoint him. It confirmed something about you that you have never allowed yourself to believe. Think of it this way. You are the seed that was buried. And when the dirt covered you, when the light disappeared, when the pressure closed in from every side, you called it death. You called it failure. You called it the end of everything you were supposed to become. But God called it planting. The loneliness you felt was not abandonment, it was focused formation. God does not scatter his attention across a crowded room when he is building something specific inside one person. He narrows his gaze. He removes the noise. He clears the space. And, yes, that feels like isolation. It feels like everyone else has company, and you are standing in an empty field with nothing but wind. But it was never punishment. It was precision. He was working on you in the silence because what he was building could not survive the noise. And the silence from heaven, those long seasons when your prayers seemed to evaporate before they left your lips, when you begged for a sign and received nothing, that silence was not rejection, it was trust. God does not explain the blueprint to the seed while it is underground. He does not show the oak tree to the acorn. He trusts the seed to keep growing in the dark, to keep pushing roots downward even when it cannot see the sun. And that is exactly what you did. You grew when no one was watching. You kept going when the soil gave you nothing back. What I have just shared with you is enough for most messages. Understanding that God sees you, that he was present in every dark season, that your pain was formation and not failure, that alone would be a powerful revelation. But this is only the surface. And I hear the Spirit saying, I was there, in the room when you thought you were alone. I was there when you prayed with shaking hands and a voice that could barely hold itself together. I was there when you almost gave up, but chose to stay one more day. I saw every step, and not one of them was wasted. But God did not just see you, he did something with what he saw. He catalogued every single step. He recorded it. He kept a file on your life that you have never been allowed to read. And when I show you what that record says, when I show you how his version of your story reads nothing like the version you have been torturing yourself with, that is where everything shifts. That is coming next. I told you that God has been watching, but what I did not tell you yet is how he watches, and this one detail changes everything. In the original Hebrew language, there is a word for the way God sees. The word is ra'ah. Now in English, we translate ra'ah simply as to see or to watch, but that translation strips away something vital. Ra'ah does not mean a passive glance. It does not mean God looked in your general direction and moved on. Ra'ah means to watch with intention, to observe with deliberate care, to attend to something with the full weight of your attention and your heart behind it. Think about the difference between a stranger glancing at you on a crowded street and a shepherd watching over the one lamb that wandered farthest from the flock. Both involve eyes. Both are technically seeing, but only one is Ra. The shepherd does not glance. The shepherd tracks. The shepherd moves when the lamb moves. The shepherd loses sleep so the lamb can rest. And when Scripture says that God watched every step you took, it uses that word, Ra. It is telling you that God did not casually observe your life from some distant throne. He tracked it, with intention, with focus. With the kind of attention that a shepherd gives to the lamb he loves most, the one that wandered farthest and cost him the most effort to bring home. That is how God has been watching you. Not the way a judge watches a defendant from behind a bench, looking for violations. Not the way a critic watches a performance, searching for flaws to circle in red. He watched you the way a father watches his child, learning to walk, knowing the falls are coming, allowing them, and never once, not for a single second, considering them failures. And this brings me to something that I believe will rewrite the way you see your entire past. You have been keeping a record of your life. Everyone does. It is the mental file you open late at night when the world goes quiet and your thoughts get loud. You pull it out, you flip through the pages, and you review the same entries over and over. And your record, the one you have been reading and rereading for years, is brutal. It is filled with red marks. Every failure circled, every wrong decision highlighted. Every season you wish you could erase, sitting right at the top of the page in letters so large they block out everything else. But here is what you did not know. God has been keeping a record too. And his record of your life reads nothing like yours. In your record, you failed. In God's record, you were being formed. Where your record highlights the relationship that fell apart, God's record highlights the grace it took to love that deeply when you had every reason to shut your heart down completely. Where your record circles the career that collapsed and calls it evidence that you are not competent, God's record notes the raw courage it took to rebuild your life. From the ground up, with no audience, no applause, and no guarantee that anything would work. Where your record marks those years of silence, those years when nothing seemed to happen, and you concluded that God had forgotten your address. His record marks those exact same years as the season your faith stopped being theoretical and became structural, because it had nothing to lean on except trust itself. Where your record says you were falling behind everyone around you, God's record says you were being pulled aside, not pushed back, set apart. Positioned in a quieter room, because the lesson he needed to teach you could not be taught in a crowd. You have been reading the wrong record, and the voice that has been narrating your story has been using the wrong language. Let me say it plainly so there is no room for your shame to twist what I am telling you. What you called failure, God called formation. What you called weakness, he called warfare, because staying soft in a world that rewards hardness is not the easy path. It is the most brutal fight a human heart can choose, and you chose it. What you called delay, he called development, because what was being constructed inside your character could not be rushed without being ruined. And God refused to ruin you for the sake of your comfort. What you called breaking, he called breakthrough, because the shell had to crack before the life inside could finally emerge into the light. And what you called your worst season, the one you still cannot talk about without your voice changing, he called your qualifying round. The exact season that proved to heaven you were ready for what comes next. If something just shifted inside you, if the record you have been reading your whole life is starting to look different than it did 15 minutes ago, type, "I see it," in the comments. That recognition is not a small thing. It is the first crack in a wall that has been standing for far too long. And before I show you the next revelation, gently press the like button, not for me, so that this message can reach another chosen one out there who has been living under the wrong record their entire life, condemning themselves by a verdict God never delivered. Now let me show you this in action. David was anointed to be king when he was roughly 15 years old. The prophet Samuel walked into his house, looked past every older, stronger, more impressive brother, and poured oil on the head of the youngest son, the one nobody sent for, the one still out in the fields covered in sheep dust. In that moment, heaven confirmed what David's heart had always suspected. He was chosen for something massive, and then nothing happened. David went back to the sheep, back to the fields, back to the silence. No throne, no army, no crown. Just sheep and stars and the sound of his own voice singing songs that no one would hear for years. For the next 15 years, David was anointed but uncelebrated, chosen but unrecognized. He carried a calling so heavy that it pressed on his chest every morning, and not a single person around him could see it or confirm it. He fought a giant, and people celebrated for a week, then forgot. He served a king who repaid his loyalty with a spear thrown at his head. He hid in caves. He slept in deserts. He led a band of broken men that nobody else wanted. 15 years of silence, obscurity, danger, and waiting. 15 years. And what was God doing during all of that? Was he frustrated that David had not arrived yet? Was he pacing in heaven, wondering why the timeline was moving so slowly? No, he was watching, with Ra'ah, with the full weight of his attention, with pride building in his chest with every passing year, because God was not measuring David by his title. He was not counting David's accomplishments or checking his watch. He was watching David's character take shape in the dark. He was watching what David did when no one was clapping, when no one was confirming, when the only evidence of the calling was a fading memory of oil on his forehead and a song in his chest that would not die. And that is exactly how God has been measuring you. Not by the milestones the world uses, not by your salary or your relationship status, or the size of your following, or how many people showed up at your last birthday. He has been measuring you by the prayers you prayed when no one was listening, by the kindness you gave when you had nothing left to give, by the faith you held on to when every logical, reasonable, practical voice in your head told you to let it go. And I have to pause and ask you something right now. When was the last time you looked at yourself, truly looked, and felt proud? Not for what you accomplished, for what you survived, not for the things people can see on the outside, for the wars you fought on the inside, the ones you never told anyone about, the ones you won in silence at 3 a.m, with nothing but your own will and a whispered prayer holding you together. If you cannot remember the last time you felt that, then hear me. Today, that changes. Most people who started this message stopped a long time ago, but you are still here. That is not casual. That is not boredom. Something inside you is being addressed right now, something that has been lodged deep in your spirit for a long time, like a splinter beneath the skin that you learned to live around, but never fully removed. And you know it. You can feel it shifting as I speak. There is something else I want to mention before we go further. Neuroscience has recently uncovered something remarkable, something that confirms what the sacred texts and ancient wisdom have been pointing to for thousands of years. Inside your brain there is a specific frequency, a wave pattern, that was designed to be fully active from the moment you were born. When you were a child, this frequency was firing at full power. It is the reason you used to learn so fast, feel everything so intensely, imagine so freely that the world felt like it was made of possibility. Everything was alive, everything was connected. But something happened. Researchers now call it the decline effect. Starting around the age of 7, this frequency, this God-given capacity that set you apart from the beginning, started to dim. Not because something was wrong with you, but because the systems you grew up inside, the pressure, the conditioning, the noise of a world that profits from keeping your mind dull, All of it gradually turned down the very thing that made you extraordinary. And for someone like you, a chosen one, someone who was born with that frequency running stronger and deeper than most people around you, the decline hit harder. The distance between who you once were and who you feel you are right now, that distance is not imagination. It is measurable. And there is a way to close it, but I will come back to that. What I need to show you next is even more important. Remember the seed I told you about at the beginning, the one that was buried in darkness and called it death, while God called it planting? Here is the next part of that story. The darkness surrounding the seed is not punishment, it is soil. It is the raw material from which roots are built. Without that darkness, without that weight pressing down from every direction, the roots would never grow deep enough to hold the tree that is being prepared above ground. The pressure you have been feeling is not destruction, it is engineering. Your roots are deeper than you know. And what they are anchoring is larger than anything you have imagined. But there is a third revelation coming, and it is the one that binds everything together. So far, I have shown you that God sees you with Ra'ah, with intention and care. And I have shown you that the record He has been keeping of your life looks nothing like yours. But what I have not yet told you is what God did with that record when He finished writing it. He did not file it away. He did not store it in some heavenly archive and move on to the next person. He turned your pain into something that no one, not even you, expected. And that is the revelation that will change how you carry yourself from this day forward. I told you that God kept a record. I showed you that His record reads nothing like the version you have been torturing yourself with for years. But what I have not told you yet is what God did when He finished writing that record. He did not file it away. He did not archive it in some forgotten drawer in heaven and move on to the next person. No. He did something with it that will change the way you understand your entire life. He turned it into evidence. Not evidence against you, evidence for you. Every entry in God's record, every step He tracked with Ra, every tear He catalogued, every silent battle He witnessed, He gathered all of it together, and He built a case. A case that proves, beyond any doubt, that you are ready for what comes next. And here is the part that will hit you the hardest. The entries that carry the most weight in God's case, the ones He considers the strongest proof of your readiness, are the exact moments you have been most ashamed of. Let me show you what I mean. You remember that relationship? The one that ended badly. The one that still stings when you think about it on certain nights. In your record, that entry is filed under failure. You loved wrong. You trusted too much. You gave pieces of yourself to someone who did not handle them with care. And you have punished yourself for that ever since, telling yourself that you should have known better, that you should have seen the signs, that someone smarter or stronger would have walked away sooner. But in God's record, that entry reads differently. It reads as proof that your heart, even after being mistreated, even after being cracked open and left exposed, still chose to remain soft. You could have gone cold. You could have shut down and built walls so thick that nothing would ever reach you again. But you did not. You kept your heart open. And God looked at that and called it proof. Proof that you can be trusted with the kind of love that is coming, because you did not let bitterness harden what He made tender, and God called it proof. Then there was the career, the job, the business, the thing you built with your hands that crumbled before your eyes. You invested everything, your time, your energy, your identity, and when it fell apart, you did not just lose income. You lost a piece of who you thought you were. And in your record, that collapse is marked as evidence that you are not capable, not smart enough, not built for the kind of success other people seem to stumble into effortlessly. But God's record says something else entirely. God's record notes that when the structure fell, you did not disappear. You stood in the rubble, you looked at the wreckage, and instead of lying down in it, you started clearing space. You rebuilt. Not loudly, not for an audience. Quietly, brick by brick, in a season when no one was watching and no one would have blamed you for quitting. And God looked at that and called it proof. Proof that what He is about to build through you will not collapse, because you have already demonstrated that you know how to carry weight without breaking. And God called it proof. And then there were the years. The long, quiet, invisible years when nothing seemed to happen. No promotion, no breakthrough, no sign from heaven, no dramatic rescue. Just the same routine, the same prayers, the same silence stretching out in front of you like a road with no end. In your record, those years are filed under wasted time, lost seasons, years you will never get back. But in God's record, those years are the most valuable entry of all. Because those were the years your faith stopped being a theory and became a structure. You did not believe because it was easy. You believed because it was all you had left. You prayed without evidence. You trusted without confirmation. You held on to a promise that every rational voice in your head told you to release. And God looked at that stubborn, illogical, unreasonable faith, the kind of faith that makes no sense to anyone watching from the outside, and He called it proof. Proof that you can carry a calling in silence, in darkness, in doubt, and never once let go. And God called it proof. And there was one more, the decision, the one that everyone around you questioned, the one that made people whisper, the one that cost you relationships and respect and the comfortable life you had built. You chose something that nobody else understood, and you did it alone, without validation, without a safety net, without anyone telling you that you were right. And the years that followed that decision were hard in ways you still have difficulty explaining to people, because the hardest part was not the struggle. The hardest part was carrying the suspicion that maybe everyone was right and you were wrong. But God was watching that decision with more attention than any other entry in your record. Because that was the moment you stopped living by the world's blueprint and started living by His. And He did not call it reckless. He did not call it foolish. He called it proof. Proof that you can hear His voice when it contradicts every other voice in the room and still follow it. And that is the rarest kind of courage heaven has seen, and God called it proof. Now, I know something is happening inside you right now as you hear these words, and I also know that there is a part of you that is resisting, a part that is listening to everything I have said and quietly whispering in the back of your mind, but you do not know what I did. You do not know the full story. You do not know the parts I have not told anyone about, the parts I buried so deep that even I try not to look at them. If you knew those parts, you would not be saying, God is proud. You would understand why I feel the way I feel about myself. I hear you. And I need you to hear this. God heard you too. He heard that exact whisper. He has heard it every single time you have said it. And He did not flinch. He did not reconsider. He did not go back to the record and revise His assessment after seeing the parts you tried to hide. Because here is what you keep forgetting. There are no hidden parts with God. He was there for all of it. The moments you buried, He witnessed in real time. The things you never told a soul, He already knew before you lived them. And after seeing every single piece, every dark corner, every secret weight, His conclusion did not change. He still calls it proof. Not proof that you are perfect, He has never required that. Proof that you endured, proof that you stayed, proof that something inside you, something planted there before you were born, refused to die no matter how many times the world tried to kill it. This is what I call the proof principle, and I need you to carry it with you long after this message ends. God does not measure readiness by your outcomes. He does not look at the scoreboard the way humans do. He measures readiness by endurance. The proof of your calling was never your success. It was your refusal to quit. It was the 1,000 invisible moments when giving up was easier, more logical, more comfortable, and you chose to stay anyway. That is what moved the heart of God, not your victories, your persistence. If you receive that truth right now, type Amen in the comments. Seal that over your life before we go further. Let me tell you about someone who lived this. 7 years ago, a woman walked away from a corporate career that most people would have envied. Good salary, stable benefits, a title that impressed people at dinner parties. But something inside her had been pulling in a different direction for years, a calling she could not explain in a job interview, a purpose that did not fit on a resume. And one morning, after months of praying and journaling and losing sleep, she made the decision. She resigned. The response from everyone around her was immediate. Her family called it irresponsible. Her friends said she was having a crisis. People she loved began to distance themselves, slowly, quietly, the way people do when they do not want to be associated with someone they think is making a mistake. For the next 7 years, she struggled financially in ways that confirmed everyone's worst predictions about her. She took jobs beneath her education just to pay rent. She watched former colleagues get promoted and buy houses and take vacations, and every holiday dinner became a courtroom where she was the only defendant, and the charge was always the same. You should have stayed. And the hardest part, the part she never told anyone, was that some nights she agreed with them. Some nights the shame was so heavy that she could not pray. She would sit in the dark and ask God if the calling she thought she heard was just her own voice echoing in an empty room. But she did not go back. 7 years after she walked away, something happened that she never planned for and never saw coming. An invitation arrived from a platform she had never pursued. They had somehow found her work, the quiet, unglamorous work she had been doing in the margins of her life while everyone was busy judging her. And that invitation opened a door that led to impact she could not have imagined, reaching people she never would have reached from inside that corporate office. The 7 years of what everyone called failure became the exact foundation that everything after was built on, not despite the struggle, because of it. She did not prove herself by winning. She proved herself by not quitting, and those 7 years she spent in shame, questioning whether God had forgotten her, wondering if the calling was real. That was the season God was most proud of. Because that was the season she walked by faith alone, with no evidence and no applause, and she did not turn back. Every storm that hit the seedling during those years was not destruction. It was the wind that forced the roots deeper, and the tree that stands now could not have been grown any other way. You have been listening for a long time now. That is not casual. Something inside you knows that what is being spoken right now is not just information. It is surgery. It is reaching into a place in your spirit where shame has been lodged for years, wrapped around something vital, and for the first time, it is being carefully, precisely removed. You can feel it happening even now. And before this message ends, I am going to speak something over your life, a declaration, an activation, something that is not a regular closing, not a goodbye, but a commissioning, and I believe it will stay with you long after you leave this space. It is the most important part of everything I have to say, so stay with me for that. There are chosen ones who have walked through this exact process, this journey of seeing God's record for the first time, of releasing the shame version, of learning that their failures were proof all along, and what they entered on the other side is something some call destiny's embrace. A phase where every step finally aligns with the original blueprint, where the fighting stops and the flowing begins. Not because life gets easy, but because you stop resisting who you were always designed to be. That is what is available on the other side of this message. But there is one more revelation, the deepest one, the one I have been building toward since the very first word. What I am about to show you is God's actual conclusion, his verdict. After watching every step, after recording every tear, after cataloging every invisible act of courage and turning your pain into proof, he arrived at one word. And that word will dismantle the last wall standing between you and the life he has been preparing. That is coming right now. Everything I have shown you so far has been leading to this moment. Revelation 1 showed you that God sees you. Not with a distant glance, but with Ra'ah, the intimate, intentional, shepherd-like gaze of a father who never once looked away. Revelation 2 showed you that he has been keeping a record of your life, and that his record reads nothing like the one shame has been forcing you to review every night. Revelation 3 showed you that your failures, the very entries you wanted to erase from your story, are the strongest evidence in God's case for your readiness. Now, hear the conclusion. The God who watched every step, the God who catalogued every tear you cried when no one else was in the room, the God who recorded every invisible act of courage, every prayer whispered under your breath, every morning you forced yourself out of bed when everything in you wanted to stay down. The God who saw every single moment of your life, including the ones you tried to bury, the ones you hoped he would overlook, the ones that still make your face burn with shame when you think about them alone. That God arrived at one word: proud, not tolerant, not patient, not reluctantly accepting, proud. And I hear the Father saying this directly to you right now. My child, I watched you fall, and I was not ashamed. I watched you doubt, and I was not offended. I watched you fight battles that no one in your life will ever know about. Battles in the middle of the night. Battles in your own mind. Battles between the person you were afraid you were becoming and the person I always knew you would be. And I need you to hear me say this clearly. I am proud. Not because you are finished, but because you did not stop becoming. You did not let the pain freeze you. You did not let the shame silence you forever. You kept moving. You kept praying. You kept showing up to a life that gave you every reason to walk away. And that, my child, is what makes my heart burn with pride. You are not what shame said you were. You are not what failure implied about your future. You are what God saw when no one else was looking. That is your true identity. And it has been waiting for you to receive it. Let me say that again, so it reaches the place inside you where shame has been sitting for too long. You are not what shame said. You are not what failure implied. You are what God saw when no one else was looking. And right now, in this moment, I am giving you permission because I think you have been waiting for someone to say this to you, and I think you have been waiting for a long time. You are allowed to believe this. You are allowed to receive pride from your Father without qualifying it, without adding a footnote that lists all the reasons you do not deserve it. You are allowed to stop punishing yourself for a past that God has already reframed. You are allowed to stand tall not because you earned it, but because you survived it. You are allowed to release the version of your story that was narrated by shame and pick up the version that was written by the hand of God. And you do not owe your shame another single day of your life. If that landed somewhere deep inside you, if you felt something crack open and release when you heard those words, type "I release" in the comments right now. Let go of the shame record. You do not need it anymore. The tree does not remember the darkness it grew through. It does not spend its days looking down at the soil, mourning the seasons it spent underground. It stands in the sunlight and grows. But God remembers. God remembers every inch of growth that happened in the dark. And He is not asking you to forget your hard seasons. He is asking you to see them the way He sees them, not as your worst chapters, as your qualifying rounds. Now, I want to share something with you that connects what your spirit just received to something your brain has been missing. And this is important because what God does in the spirit, He often confirms in the science. I mentioned earlier that there is a frequency inside your brain, a specific wave pattern called the gamma frequency, that was designed to be fully operational from the moment you were born. This is not mysticism. This is neuroscience, documented in research from MIT, Princeton, Harvard, and several other leading universities. When you were a child, your gamma frequency was firing at full power. That is why you learned differently than other kids, why you felt things more deeply, why you had a kind of intuition that adults around you could not explain. You were not just smart. You were operating on a wavelength that most people never access. Scientists now call gamma the genius brainwave, the super brainwave, because it is linked to intuition, creativity, deep focus, and what researchers describe as flow state. That rare condition where everything clicks and your mind operates at a level that feels almost supernatural. But here is what happened. Starting around age 7, that frequency began to dim. Researchers call it the decline effect. The modern world, the education system, the constant stimulation, the stress and noise and pressure of simply growing up in a society that profits from keeping your mind in survival mode. All of it gradually turned down the very frequency that made you extraordinary. And for someone like you, someone who was born with gamma running stronger and deeper than most, the decline hit harder. The gap between who you were as a child, full of wonder and speed and clarity, and who you feel you are now, heavy and foggy and fighting for every breakthrough, that gap is not imagination. That gap is measurable. And it has a name. A neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake spent 34 years studying this exact phenomenon. His body of work includes research he eventually called the youthful brain, an exploration of the dormant capacity that every human being is born with, but nearly all of us lose. And after decades of research, he made a discovery that changed everything. He found a way to reactivate the gamma frequency, not through months of meditation, not through expensive biofeedback equipment that costs $7,000 for a home setup, not through therapy sessions at $300 an hour. He compressed the entire technology into a 7-minute digital audio track that uses a process called brain entrainment to guide your brain back to the frequency it was always designed to operate on. You put on headphones, you press play, you listen for 7 minutes, and the audio does the work that used to require years of practice or equipment most people could never afford. He calls it the Genius Song. And I need to be honest with you about something before I go further. I would never disrespect your financial situation. I know that for many people listening right now, every dollar matters. Every purchase is weighed carefully. And $39 is not a number I take lightly on your behalf. So, I will not pretend this is nothing. It is a real decision, and it deserves real consideration. But let me help you see what that decision actually looks like when you lay it next to the alternatives. The traditional path to reactivating gamma involves biofeedback therapy at $300 per session, sometimes weekly for months, or purchasing neurofeedback equipment for your home at a cost of roughly $7,000, or committing to years of deep meditation practice that most people start and abandon within weeks because the results take too long to feel. Dr. Lake took the same science behind all of those methods and compressed it into a single 7-minute audio file. The original price is $49, but through the link available exclusively to viewers of this message in the description and the pinned comment below, the price is $39. That price is not available on Amazon, not on Spotify, not anywhere else. It exists because Dr. Lake wanted this technology to reach the people who actually need it, not just the people who can afford clinical sessions. And along with the audio, you receive 4 bonuses at no additional cost. A companion track designed for children called Genius Child, a classic book on financial wisdom that normally sells for $20 on its own. A guided visualization for 4 areas of your life: money, love, health, and happiness. And an infographic of the 5 most important daily habits that you can reference every morning. All of it is backed by a 100% money-back guarantee. No conditions, no time limit on usage. If you listen and feel no difference, you get every cent back. The only risk is not trying. And I want to say this plainly, because it matters. Every day that your gamma frequency remains dormant is not a neutral day. It is another day your prayers feel like they are bouncing off a ceiling. Another day your decisions feel clouded by fog that should not be there. Another day the person you were designed to be stays locked behind a door that was never supposed to be closed. The version of you who has already reactivated, the version of you who wakes up with clarity instead of confusion, with flow instead of friction, that version is looking back at this exact moment as the turning point. The decision does not need to be perfect, it just needs to be made. One important thing: there are counterfeit versions of this technology circulating online. Fake websites, imitation audio tracks that use the name but do not contain the actual brain entrainment science. Those will not do what the real technology does. They are ordinary sound files with a stolen label. The only way to receive the authentic Genius song with the full technology, all 4 bonuses, and the complete money-back guarantee is through the link in the description and the pinned comment of this message. Do not search for it on Amazon or YouTube or Spotify. That is not where the real version lives. If your spirit resonates with what I have shared, the link is below. Investigate only if you feel led. Some of the people who began their journey with this technology went on to explore deeper tools within the same system. One woman I mentioned earlier, the seeker who had tried meditation and yoga and retreats for years without feeling truly connected, she said that after starting with the audio, something called neuroactive became part of her continued path. But it all began with those first 7 minutes, and it began with a decision to stop waiting for the fog to clear on its own. Now, let me bring you back to where we are, because what is coming next is the part that will stay with you long after the science fades and the facts settle. What is coming next is the activation I promised you. And it is not a regular closing, it is a commissioning. Before we enter the most sacred part of this message, I want to leave you with 2 things you can carry into your life starting today. Not theories, not ideas to think about later, tools. Practices that will protect what has been spoken over you and prevent your old record from reclaiming territory it no longer owns. The first is called the Divine Mirror Practice, and it is the simplest thing I will teach you today, but it may also be the most powerful. Every morning, before the noise of the day begins, before the world gets a chance to remind you of its version of your story, I want you to stand in front of your own reflection, or, if you cannot get to a mirror, simply hold your own face in your mind and speak 3 truths from God's record instead of shame's record. Not affirmations, not wishful thinking. Declarations based on evidence that heaven has already confirmed. Instead of reviewing what went wrong yesterday, review what you survived. Instead of listing the ways you fell short, list the steps God catalogued as courage. Instead of opening the morning with the question, "What is wrong with me?" open it with the statement, "God is proud of who I am becoming." 3 declarations every morning, spoken out loud or spoken inside your chest, where only you and God can hear. That is the practice. And it will, over time, rewrite the default narrative your mind reaches for when the world gets heavy. The second tool is called the Shame Release Protocol, and it works like this. When shame rises, and it will rise, because shame does not leave quietly after one message, it comes back to test whether you really meant it when you let go. I want you to do 3 things. First, name it. Say to yourself, "I feel ashamed of," and finish the sentence. Do not let shame hide behind vague heaviness. Pull it into the light and give it a name. Second, reframe it using the proof principle. Say, "But God called this," and finish that sentence with the truth. God called my breakdown endurance. God called my failed relationship refinement. God called my years of silence preparation. Use the language of heaven's record to overwrite the language of shame's record. And third, release it. Say, "I return this to the wrong record. It does not belong in God's review of my life," and let it go. Not because you are pretending it did not happen, but because it no longer gets to define what it meant. Name it, reframe it, release it. That is the protocol. And you can do it anywhere, in traffic, in bed at night, in the middle of a conversation that triggered something old. It does not require a journal or a quiet room. It only requires a decision to stop letting shame narrate your story. You are not alone in this. Right now, all across the world, chosen ones are hearing these same words and feeling the same weight lifting from their shoulders. Some of them are crying, and they do not know why. Some of them are nodding slowly, as if something they always suspected is finally being confirmed. Some of them are sitting in silence with their hand over their chest, feeling their heartbeat steady for the first time in weeks. This is not just your moment. This is a collective shift. And you are part of it. You are no longer the seed, you are the tree. And God has been watching since the seed. Now we enter the closing, and I want to be clear about what this is. This is not a goodbye. This is not the part where the message fades and you move on to the next thing. This is an activation, a commissioning, a sealing of everything that has been spoken over your life in the last several minutes. And I need your full presence for it. Father, we begin with gratitude, not the kind that comes easy, the kind that comes from someone who has walked through fire and is still standing. Thank you for watching. Thank you for never turning away, even during the seasons we turned away from ourselves. Thank you for sitting in the silence with us when we thought the silence meant you had left. Thank you for the nights you sat with us when we did not know. You were there when the room felt empty and the ceiling felt low and the only sound was our own breathing. You were there, and we thank you for that with everything we have. You saw every weight we carried. You saw the questions we held in the dark, the ones we were too afraid to ask out loud because we thought the answers would confirm our worst fears about ourselves. You saw the moments we chose faithfulness when no one was counting. You saw the tears we hid from people we love because we did not want to become a burden. You saw us choose kindness when cruelty would have been so much easier, when the person in front of us deserved our worst and we gave them something better anyway, not because we are saints, but because something inside us, something you planted, would not let us become what hurt us. You saw it all. And I hear you saying, I saw it all, and I would watch it all again, because every step made you who you are. Now we release. I release the shame record. Release. I release the self-condemnation that played on repeat in my mind, like a song I never chose to listen to. Release. I release the belief that I was not enough, that I was falling behind, that everyone else was figuring it out while I was drowning. Release. I release the lie that God was disappointed in me, that his silence was proof that he had moved on to someone more deserving. Release. I release the courtroom I built inside my own mind, where I was the judge, the jury, and the defendant, convicting myself every single night. Release. I release the version of my story that was narrated by fear, edited by shame, and published by a voice that was never mine to begin with. Release. I release every step I tried to hide from God, every moment I buried under layers of guilt, as if the creator of the universe could be fooled by my silence. Release. I activate the truth that God is proud, not tolerant, not reluctantly accepting, proud. I activate the identity that was written into my blueprint before I ever took a single breath. I activate the courage to live from God's record, his version, his language, his verdict, and to let the old record gather dust in a file that will never be opened again. I speak protection over this truth. Cover it. Guard it from the voice that will come tomorrow morning and try to pull me back into the old courtroom. Protect what has been planted today from premature exposure, from the opinions of people who do not have access to God's record and therefore have no authority to narrate my story. Shield this revelation from the enemy's oldest strategy, which is to let you receive the truth in the evening and steal it back before sunrise. And now I declare, I am the light bearer. I carry illumination into rooms that have forgotten what light looks like. I am the cycle breaker. What came before me ends with me, and what begins with me will outlast me. I am the wounded healer. My pain is not my prison, it is my medicine, and it will heal people I have not yet met. I am the truth carrier. I cannot live behind a mask, and I will not apologize for seeing what others choose to ignore. I am the one God watched. I am the one God recorded. I am the one God tested, not to break, but to prove. And I am the one God is proud of. I am done apologizing for becoming who I was always meant to be. Do not say amen yet. I want you to sit inside what was just spoken. Do not rush past it. Do not let the moment dissolve into the next notification, the next thought, the next distraction. What you just received is not information, it is frequency, and frequency needs time to settle into your bones, the same way rain needs time to reach the roots beneath the soil. What you are feeling right now, this weight in your chest that is somehow lighter than anything you have carried in months, this is the threshold. Some call it destiny's embrace. You are standing at its edge. And the only thing left to do is to stop resisting and step forward. Sit in this for 60 seconds. Do not speak. Just breathe and let the verdict land. It is done. It is sealed. It is received. God's pride over you is not conditional. It is not temporary. It is not a feeling that depends on your performance tomorrow. It is eternal. It was true before you heard this message. It will be true long after you forget the words, because it was never based on what you did. It was based on who you are. Amen. One more thing before you go. The person you were when you pressed play is not the person sitting here right now. Something shifted. Something cracked open. Something that had been lodged deep in your spirit, something old and heavy and unnamed, was carefully removed over the course of this message. And you may not fully understand what happened today for weeks, maybe months, but you will notice it. In the way you speak to yourself in the mirror, in the way you respond to shame when it tries to return, in the way you carry your shoulders just slightly lower, just slightly more relaxed, as if something you were holding has finally been set down. You are not the same. And you do not need to go back. If you are ready to carry God's version of your story into the rest of your life, type, "I am proud of who I am becoming" in the comments. Say it with the authority of someone who has heard the verdict of heaven and accepted it without apology. If this message brought clarity to confusion, if it brought peace to a place that only knew shame, if it brought God's pride to a heart that had been living under self-condemnation for far too long, let your like be your amen, without words. There are more words being prepared for your next season. Messages that are being written right now for the exact circumstances you are about to walk into. Stay connected so they can find you when you need them most. For those who felt called to what I shared earlier about reactivating your gamma frequency, the link to the Genius song is in the description and the pinned comment below. Only if your spirit confirms. And one last thing. If someone came to mind while you were listening, someone who has been unusually hard on themselves lately, someone who carries a weight they have never been able to name, someone who looks steady on the outside, but you know something inside them is quietly breaking, send this to them. Text it, email it, share it however you need to, because this might be the exact moment their shame record gets replaced with something that finally tells the truth. Walk in the pride of your Father, chosen one, not arrogance. Pride, the kind that comes from knowing you were watched, you were recorded, and you were found worthy. Go in peace. You are not leaving a message. You are leaving a courtroom, and the verdict is final.